Speaking Spanish correctly. A guide for correct Spanish pronunciation. This guide is not organized alphabetically. It is organized phonemically, that is, by the sound of the letters. In this way, the letters are grouped by the similarity in points of articulation in speech and the differences in sound. Technical linguistic information is given for an added information. This information specifies 3 areas aiding correct pronunciation. First, the point of articulation, or the action of pronouncing, where the tongue is in the mouth and what parts of the mouth are involved. The voiced or unvoiced, that's the engagement of the vocal cords. And aspiration, or the flow of air or the lack thereof produced in the release of the sound prior to the onset of the next sound sequence. Velar stops. Velar stops are produced in the back of the mouth. This term refers to the pronunciation of letters that are made when you stop the flow of air coming up from the throat. The letters C, K, and G are velar stops, both voiced and unvoiced. They have a particular pronunciation in Spanish that is different from English because in Spanish all of them are unaspirated. Unaspirated means that there is no flow of air behind them. The main letters affected here are the K and the C. In English we have a puff of air behind them when we pronounce them. Particular note, when the G occurs medially in the word, it is a voiced velar fricative. There is no English equivalent pronunciation. How to produce it? Maintain the point of articulation as with a G sound and slightly allow air to come through instead of forming a stop with the G. The next few slides will show you. The sounds that are in the back of the throat, the G and the K, are written in 2 different ways. You'll notice that there's a QUE and a QUI. We're concentrating on the sound. We're not concentrating on the way that it is as a letter per se. CA is pronounced Ka. QUE is pronounced K. QUI, Ki, Go, Gu. Remember that puff of air I was talking to you about before with P? The same thing happens with the K sound as well. In English we say kite, cake, cookie. In Spanish there's no puff of air behind it. It's if we say sky, again, feel, sky, scold, school, there's no air behind it. That's the K sound that we want. So these are not pronounced ka, ke, ki, ko, ku. And they're not pronounced ka, kwe, kui, quo, ku. They're pronounced ka, ke, ki, go, gu. It's as if you're just barely saying the letter. Ga, ga. Again, it sounds like ga, sounds like a G, because you're not used to hearing the difference between when there is a voice G and when there's not a voice K. Ka, ke, ki, ko, gu. So the first word, canicas, canicas. Queso, queso. Equipo, equipo. Cocina, cocina. Cupón, cupón. And when it's in the middle, has the same sound. Acacia, acacia. Parque, parque. Aquí, aquí. Circo, circo. Oculto, oculto. The K in Spanish does really not exist except on borrowed words. The K is in the alphabet, but really, it's, as you can see in these words, it's a borrowed words retain the use of the K. Kabuki, and it's pronounced the same as the letter C. Kefir, kilo, koala, Kuwaiti. The G is pronounced the same, except when it's in the middle of the word. And I will show you when that happens. Ga, ge, gi, go, gu. Just look at the top ones first, not the ones with the two little dots over it. Ga, ge, gi, go, gu. First word, gato, gato. Guerra, guerra. Guía, guía. Gota, gota. Gumi, gumi, as in gummy bears. And when it's in the middle of the word, then it has that same type of fricative friction that we talked about with the B becoming V and the V becoming V. The G, G, is soft and becomes G. So actually you're letting a little bit of air come out from the back of your throat where you're making the G sound. Ga, ga, ge, ge, gi, yi, go, gu, gu. But only when it's in the middle of the word, not beginning a new part of the syllable. So listen to the second line of words here. Aga. It's not aga. 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 Pague. Pague. And then the state in Venezuela called Anzoátegui. Anzoátegui. Salgo. Salgo. Agua. Agua. The G is a little softer when it's in the middle. Now you see the G-U-E with the two little dots over the U, and the G-U-I and the two little dots over the U. That means that you actually pronounce the U. So in the top one where you see G-U-E, it's gay. The one underneath it with the two little dots is gue. The two little dots means you pronounce the U. So it's actually a blend of two vowels. So in our chart, the first word is antigüedades. Antigüedades. And the second one, guiro. Guiro.
Alveolar stops. Alveolar ridge is that ridge behind the upper front teeth. Stops means no air passes. This term refers to the pronunciation of letters that are made when you put your tongue behind this ridge to stop the flow of air. The letters D and T are alveolar stops, both voiced and unvoiced. They have a particular pronunciation in Spanish that is different from English because in Spanish all of them are unaspirated. Unaspirated, again, means that there is no flow of air behind them. The main letters affected here are the T and the D. In English, we have a puff of air behind them when we pronounce them. Of particular note, when the D is medial in the word, it becomes a voiced interdental fricative. A voiced interdental fricative means the tongue is placed between the teeth and is voiced as air flows over the tongue and between the teeth. In this case, medially, the Spanish D is pronounced like the TH in the English word there.
The T in Spanish is also made right behind that ridge, just like in English, ta, except, guess what? No puff of air. In English, we say ta, te, ti, to, tu, not in Spanish. In Spanish, again, if you put an S before the word, like the word stay, stop, still, there's no puff of air. That's the T that we want. That's the sound. So, ta, te, ti, do, do. Again, you probably are having a hard time distinguishing between the D and the T when you hear it because your ears are not accustomed to listening to both the sounds. The D, da, the T, da, da, da. Once again, da, de, di, do, do. First word, taco, taco. Second word, tema, tema. Título, título. Todo, todo. Tú, tú. And it has the same sound pronunciation when it's in the middle of the word. Grata, grata. Boquete, boquete. Cati, cati. Suelto, suelto. Bantu, bantu. The D in English and the D in Spanish are the same, except the D in Spanish changes a little bit when it's in the middle of the word, when it's surrounded by two vowels. So we say da, and it's actually said with the flat part of your tongue right behind that ridge where you're behind your front teeth. It's called the alveolar ridge. And you don't say it da with the tip of your tongue there. It's more with a little bit back. Da, da, with the flatter part of your tongue, not da with the middle of your tongue. So not da, 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 da. In English, da. You can see maybe the position of my tongue if I get close enough. Da, da. Datos. The first word, datos. Delta, delta. Dilatar, dilatar. Dormir, dormir. Dulce, dulce. The second row of words, you can see that it has an N in front of it, so it's still going to pronounce that same hard D sound because it's divided a syllable there. So the first word, anda, anda. Grande, grande. Condición, condición. Cuando, cuando. Fondue, fondue. Now the last row of words has a red D in it, and that D is red because it's not pronounced D. It's actually pronounced like the TH in the English word there. There. So when the D is in the middle of the word, surrounded on both sides by a vowel, it's pronounced th. First word, ada, ada. Adecuado, adecuado. Pedí, pedí. Dedo. That's a good example of both. Dedo, dedo. And the last word, aduana, aduana. Now you don't stick your tongue out and go aduana or ada or adecuado. It's soft, but it's definitely between your teeth. It's called an interdental fricative. It goes between your teeth.
Labial dental fricative. Labial dental means lips and teeth. Fricative means friction or vibration. This term refers to the pronunciation of letters that are made when air is forced through the partial stop made by the lower lip, pressing against the upper teeth, causing friction. The letter F is a labial dental fricative that is unvoiced. It is pronounced identical to the F in English. Note, however, In some areas of the Spanish-speaking world, such as the Andes and some areas of the Caribbean, the F, when appearing initially or medially, might be pronounced as an unvoiced bilabial fricative, which will sound like a simple puff of air. Peculiarities in pronunciation will be pointed out as we proceed. Note, as noted in the section on stops, in English, V is pronounced as a labial dental fricative that is voiced. In Spanish, however, initial syllabic V, like the Spanish B, is pronounced as a labial dental stop.
The F in Spanish is identical to the F in English. Yay! Fa, fe, fi, fo, fu. Familia, familia. Fe, fe. Final, final. Forte, forte. Fundar, fundar. Afán, afán. Afección, afección. Afición, afición. Grifó, grifó. Tofu, tofu.
Hello, this is me 13 years later, updating this and trying to cut corners so I don't have to record the whole thing. I might end up doing it anyway. But it's worth noting, particularly those who are going to Caribbean area, which would be the islands, as well as Colombia, Venezuela, and the Andes region, Bolivia, Ecuador, Peru, that in some cases the F, which is normally pronounced medially in the word or at the initial syllable, can be pronounced as an unvoiced bilabial fricative, meaning puff of air, without the P. This appears to be a very early form of Spanish, spoken a long time ago, and which just carried on in these areas. But as we go through here, if we repronounce these with that added possibility, fa would be fa, fe, fe, fi, fi, fo, fo, fu, fu. Familia, fe, final, forte, fundar. Or if it's in the middle of the word, afán, afecto, afición, grifo, tofu. And it appears to me that it appears more medially than perhaps at the beginning. But in some Andes regions, you might even get a U with that. So instead of familia, it may come out familia, fue, final, forte, fundar, afán. So there may be a little U sound as well in some of the pronunciation of these. In not in all cases, giving differences in speech among individuals as well. But when you're speaking faster and you're just not isolating the word, the tendency to be a unvoiced bilabial fricative may be greater. So instead of just saying familia, if you were to say estuve en una familia, there you've got una familia, and it's surrounded by other vowels and consonants. The fricative might happen more often than you think.
The same thing happens with the B. The V and the B are pronounced exactly the same in Spanish. So this, as well as the other one, is pronounced ba, be, bi, bo, bu. First word, vale, vale. Venta, venta. Victoria, victoria. Volar, volar. Vuelo, vuelo. And the words underneath, once again, are very slightly fricative, very slight vibration. And it's not the b, but uvas, uvas. Aventura, aventura. Avidez, avidez. Polvo, polvo. Revulsivo, revulsivo. Silent pause. The H is a letter in Spanish that is not pronounced, but is used to separate syllables in pronunciation. It slightly cuts off the flow of air between vowels and functions as a slight velar stop. When it occurs at the beginning of a word, it functions to separate two vowels if the prior word ends in a vowel. When it occurs medially, that is in the middle of a word, it separates syllables. It causes a hiatus, or ley de hiato. It shows that the two vowels surrounding it are not to be pronounced as a diphthong. The H in Spanish, the H, has no sound at all and is usually used for division between syllables. In that case, you don't pronounce the H ever. First word, halcón, halcón. Helado, helado. Hilo, hilo. Honduras, Honduras. Hundir, hundir. And when it's in the middle of the word between two vowels, it means you pronounce each vowel separately and it divides the syllable. Almohada, almohada. Dehesa, dehesa. Ahínco, ahínco. Ahorrar, ahorrar. Ahumado, ahumado.